somehow won 2-1 at home to a very impressive Brighton and Hove Albion side, who I would say deserved at very least a draw.
Yeah.
But I don't care, because in the last minute, possibly for only the second time in the match, we put together a move that worked. We got the ball out to Richarlison, timed a ball into Heung-min Son on the left perfectly, and he, because he is elite, at the exact correct time, with the exact correct weight, laid it across the box. And Brennan Johnson, one of the things he has been great at this season is making those last second runs at the back stick, puts it in, we all go wild. 2-1. I'm here with Josh King. Josh, what a game. How are you feeling about it?
God, I'm so confused right now, because I was ready to tear into the team, tear into the subs.
You can still tear into them.
No, what I'll say is it just proves having Sonny on the pitch is just so pivotal. Having that world-class player, he's probably our only world-class player, I would say, to just make that difference, whether it's a pass, whatever it is. Do you know what I mean? I'm just, I'm so happy that we ground that out, because the main reason I'm so happy that I was willing to take a win by any means, whether we played well or not, is because I do think we will get better as the season goes on, as our players get match fit, as everything gets better, we get used to playing together again, we will get better. So I'm happy we got the 3 points on the board. Overall, first half, not too happy with the way we played it all. I think Brighton were the better team, without threatening too much, I would say.
Vicario had to make a couple of really important saves in that first half, but neither team cut each other open, I wouldn't say. Yeah,
exactly. And in that first half, we forced 1 or 2 saves out of their keeper as well. So, but in the middle of the park, passing the ball, beating the press, they were far superior to us the whole game.
Yeah, and do you know what? I'm not embarrassed or ashamed to say it. I think Brighton are an unbelievable football team when they've got a week to prepare for games. De Zerbi is a class coach, and there will be teams above us this season who will lose and draw against Brighton. So look, like you said, whichever way you can take your victory, you take your victory. And what I would say is, once he made the substitutions, there was a period of 10 minutes. So he brought on Son, he brought on Bissouma, and he brought on Brennan Johnson. There was a period of 10 minutes or so where, for the first time since those first 10 games, or maybe since before Bissouma got sent off against Luton, it's the first time where we were playing some lovely stuff in midfield, controlling the game, and then they just dropped off.
Yeah.
And Brighton came on with the press again, and that is disappointing. But just sometimes you've got to take your wins how you take them. Get the desire up. For sure, the celebration police are going to be out in force tonight. I saw some, just from the TV behind the producer, I saw that it was an absolute party at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium right then. But you take your wins, and in the Premier League against a team as good as Brighton, you take them. And I really hope going forward into March and April, when the European games start happening, that we get to play some of those European teams on the Thursday, Sunday, because it makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
And we were lucky today. Honestly, we were frankly lucky. And I want to say, I thought Brighton were very impressive. If any Brighton fans stumble across this feed, very impressive. I'm pretty sure De Zerbi will be heavily talked about in the boardrooms of Liverpool, Real Madrid, other places, Barcelona maybe as well. But I want to talk about Christian Romero, because I said at half-time, I thought Romero was being a little safe on the ball. And one of the best things, one of the world-class things about Christian Romero is when he's got time and space on the ball, picking out dangerous passes in between the lines. And in the second half, he was far superior at that, and I think that changed the momentum of the game for us.
Agreed. Yeah, and do you know what? Just on Christian Romero, even when he doesn't have time on the ball, he's pretty good at it. He's one of our best players in our first 11 for beating the press. He's criminally underrated by rivals, I believe. Yep. Every time I'm in a group chat with multiple different supporters, people are talking about, he's just, he's a foul merchant, he's this, he's that, he's whatever. I honestly think next to... It kind of goes with how the captaincy is. Like, I do believe Romero, Maddison and Son are our best players. Anyway, now what I want to see after this result, because sometimes you have to take the results even if the performance isn't there.
Yep.
Now I want to see us take the confidence from this result and start playing the kind of football we were playing in the first 10 games.
Let me ask you a question. Is it that the players aren't up to match fitness and that's why the football isn't as good? Or is it that other teams have found us out and found ways to stop us from outnumbering them in midfield like we were in those early games with the inverted fullbacks?
I think it's the former because, it's hard to tell because if it was the latter, like teams were finding us out, it's hard to tell because we haven't had those players on the pitch to tell. So even if they have felt like they've found us out, you wait until we've got our strongest first 11 on the pitch and see if you can still do it then. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I think one of the huge differences was and will be that when Son is on the ball, I think defences and opposition midfields are naturally going to worry more, and therefore other players that have more space as a result.
Exactly.
Son's touch. It's almost like I'd forgotten how good Son's touch and intelligence is, because the difference between Werner and Son when he came on was chalk and cheese, wasn't it?
Yeah.
In terms of Werner, and I'm not saying Werner played particularly badly or is a bad player, but his confidence isn't there to take it out of his feet with his first touch and scan around and see who's there and pop it off at a really decent rate. And that really impressed me today. So long may that continue. Should mention, Pat Matasar scored the first goal for us.
Yeah.
I thought he wasn't really involved in the game too much in the first half, but in that first 20 minutes of the second half, both him and Kulusevski were vital to us getting that equaliser.
Yeah, and to be honest, I disagree. I do think, I'm not going to say he was the best player on the pitch, but there was a 5-minute period where I thought that in the first half, I'm talking about here, where I thought that Sarr, I was like, do you remember I said to you, I think Sarr's been our best player.
Okay.
Because, no one else was finding little sharp passes around the corner and doing things. He was the most involved in beating the press anyway.
I think I just felt that he was being bypassed by other players more, but sometimes you see the first 5-10 minutes of a game and you've got in your head something
exactly.
and then you don't lose it. So.
And I agree with that, by the way, in the but then in possession, he was the least likely to lose it out of the midfielders.
Oh, right, yeah.
Would you agree with that?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, especially, I was going to bring us on to this next, actually.
Yeah.
Bentancur, I thought, had a bit of a harrowing first half.
Yeah.
Should say, in the second half, a little bit of bravery from him was responsible for getting the ball to Kulusevski, who set up Sarr for his goal. So we have to give him that. But Bentancur is, I think, struggling to kind of get back up to speed after his injuries at the moment. And it would be interesting to see if he starts. It wouldn't surprise me at all if against Wolves at home in the next game, which will be another difficult game, because I really think Gary O'Neill tactically is very sharp.
Yeah.
But it wouldn't surprise me if he goes back to that original 10-game mix of Sarr, Maddison, and
Sarr, Maddison, and Basuma.
And Basuma, of course. Who Basuma came on and did Basuma things. I thought he was good.
Yeah, I thought he was good.
Tell me more about Bentancur then.
Funny thing is, I actually think Bentancur might be the right play for the next game, just because I don't think they're going to be pressing us the same way that Brighton did.
They'll drop off a bit more.
Yeah, and what I wanted to say about today's game as well is we are not going to find many teams in the league that actually beat the press better than Brighton.
No.
There's, you got City, Liverpool, Arsenal, whatever, that all are more dangerous. Mm-hmm. Yeah. City can beat the press better. I think Brighton are right up there, probably in the top 3 teams in the league for beating the press. So when it comes to actually dominating that midfield, I'm not going to put too much on us today, and I'm just going to be happy with the result, and I'm going to trust in Ange to get it right next time. But Son has to start next game.
Of course. I think there's another thing as well, is that there aren't any other teams really who Tottenham are expected to beat at home.
Yeah.
Who will come out and control the game the way Brighton did.
Exactly.
And the way that they press us.
Exactly.
And that's where Brighton are performing way above their station, really. And for the last couple of years have performed way above almost like their size as a club or their expectancy.
Yeah.
And therefore they can come to these places, play their natural game, and still be the underdogs.
Yeah.
Which is a lovely feeling to be able to play your football. Whereas if Liverpool come to Spurs or City come to Spurs or even Arsenal come to Spurs, we're the underdogs, really.
Yeah.
And so therefore less of that pressure is on us.
Yeah. And it's reflected in the games, like when we've played Liverpool at home. I feel like we played well. Do you know what I mean? Because we had that underdog mentality, but we're not afforded that against Brighton. It's kind of like the crowd is on top of us when Brighton are out passing us.
Yeah,
do you know what
exactly.
I mean?
And that's
But
almost from who Brighton are as a club rather than the reality of how good they've been in the last 18 months, 2 years.
Yeah.
So just coming to the end of this, I'm going to ask you, to give your man of the match today. Tottenham Hotspur man of the match, Josh.
God, what a tough one. For the second half performance, a lot of people will probably disagree with this, but I'm going to have to give it to Romero, I think.
Yeah.
Just because I feel like he was instrumental in the way we beat the press, the quick, clever passes, and I feel like it started from the... It's so interesting how it starts from the back when we improve. We're worrying about scoring goals, but Romero is instrumental to that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
How we play out from the back is instrumental to how we score goals. But
Yeah, and just because you've mentioned the centre-half, I agree. I think Romero played brilliantly, but also I think Van der Ven is just so absolutely vital to the way we play, because the amount of times where he sweeps up behind our back line and enables us to, get it back to Vicario and start again. And in games where, like you said, hopefully starting with the Wolves game, in games where we're not being pressed as high, that will enable us to control the game a lot more. And that's what I'm expecting more of in the next 2 games. Wolves at home, Crystal Palace at home. I started this feed a few hours ago by saying I felt Brighton was the absolute key game towards the rest of our season. I felt if we can win against Brighton, then we can win against Wolves and we can beat Palace, even though I think Wolves will be very difficult and Palace will probably have a new manager. But I think we can get those 9 points. I think every chance.
But yeah.
I think we can get those 9 points, and then we've got Villa away. And in that Villa away game, we will be the underdogs. And it wouldn't surprise me if we are able to go there and really show them a difference between us. Anyway, I don't want to run before we can walk. We've got a massive 3 points today. We were lucky to get it.
Yeah.
But were Everton in some way lucky to get a last-minute equaliser against us? Yes, they were.
Yeah.
And were we to some degree lucky to beat Brentford 2-1? They played pretty well. Yes, we were. And frankly, out of those 3 games, we've taken 7 points.
Yeah.
If we'd have drawn those 2 games, the last 2, we'd be on 5 points.
Yeah.
So it's been successful 3 games. Let's go into the next 2 games positively. And more importantly, stay online, because We Are Tottenham TV, myself and Josh are going to do the post-match live call-in show in about 10 minutes' time. So come back to this link and find us there and call in, and we'll speak to you. In fact, Josh will mainly speak to you because my voice is about to go. But most importantly, come on, you Spurs.
Come on, you Spurs.